You know, there's three things that I enjoy doing most. One is teaching leadership, two is building teams, and three is working with food. So I want to talk about a topic that I just find so fascinating. And it's a topic that makes an enormous difference to the results of any organization or any individual for that matter, and that's the topic of leadership. Now, I don't think there's any part of a business or any part of your life that leadership doesn't affect. Whether it's leadership of self, leadership of others, or leadership of leaders, it applies to everything. And if you really think about it, strong leadership is probably at the heart of every sizable human achievement, and it always has been. Everything rises and falls with leadership. Now, obviously this is a huge topic. It would take years, not minutes, to do it justice. But I know your time is important, so it's my goal today is to leave you thinking that this was the best 10 minutes you've ever spent. I want to give you as much value as I possibly can in that short amount of time. We'll cover some tried, tested, and proven ideas that when applied make a huge difference to your results by developing your leadership skills. Now, leadership is absolutely a teachable skill. Leadership is predictable. Leadership operates by laws. If you learn the laws, then you'll learn to lead. But if you ignore the laws, then you're always going to struggle with leadership, and it's always going to be a source of frustration for you. Now, the core leadership philosophies, the key concepts, come from John Maxwell's internationally best-selling book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Now, it's a book that's been translated in 47 different languages, sold millions of copies around the world, and has become the leadership Bible for many organizations. Now, John's written about 100 books, sold about 25 million of them, and has consistently, year over year, been voted the #1 leadership expert. So he's produced a string of best-selling books on leadership, but the 21 Laws has probably been the most popular. Now, I think one of the reasons that it's been so successful and continues to do so is that the information is very simple, it's very practical, it's easy to understand, and easy to implement. But right away makes a huge difference to your results. So, what is leadership then? Well, leadership encompasses far more than most people initially think. It starts with leadership of self, leadership of others, then leadership of leaders of business, and at the highest level, from the state to the country. Now, Webster's dictionary defines leadership as a position, place, office, or title of leadership. Let me say that again. Position, place, office, or title of leadership. Well, that seems a bit simplistic, doesn't it? But you know, as well as I do, that leadership is more complicated than that. Just ask anybody who's ever been charged of a staff or department. See, we're all born with different God-given talents, but that's not enough. Talent does not equal results. Otherwise, all successful people would be talented, and they're not. And all unsuccessful people would be untalented, and they're not. And you know from your own observation that this just isn't true. Do you know any talented people that seem to lack the results they deserve? Well, of course you do. You probably know dozens. And do you know any untalented people that have everything go their way? Again, they're everywhere, aren't they? Now, we're only going to take a look at one of these laws. So this is an abbreviated lesson of a full lesson that I have. We're going to take a look at the law of the lid. How well you lead determines how successful you are. Simple as that. How well you lead determines how successful you are. Now, for this specific law, I'd like to perform a demonstration. It's an old magic trick. It's an old flea magic trick that goes way back to the early circus days. For this trick, all you need is a jar with a lid and some fleas. Well, I have the jar and I have the lid. I just don't have any fleas. But just say, for the sake of the demonstration, that we have the fleas. So to perform this act, all you do is you take your jar, you place your fleas inside the jar, you place the lid on it. Well, naturally, the fleas are going to want to escape. They're going to jump and jump and jump and jump. Well, after a certain period of time, I'm pretty sure those fleas, their head is going to start to hurt, so they are going to adjust the height of their jump so they don't hit that lid anymore. Well, at that point, you can gather everybody around. Everybody comes over. Abracadabra, hocus pocus. The fleas are jumping. They're jumping. You take the lid off. They're jumping, but they are not jumping out. They have programmed themselves to only jump so high. Well, I like to look at that and how it relates to the law of the lid. Now, the jar represents the business or department. The fleas inside the jar represent the staff, the people running the department. And the lid represents the leadership's ability and effectiveness. Well, as the leader tries to increase his business, increases his jar size, adds another department, adds more fleas, but if he doesn't increase himself, he's not going to be able to carry the staff. They're not going to rise beyond the leadership lid of the leader. Does that make sense to everybody? Well, I recommend you don't perform this act at home, especially if you have pets. So it's easy to see how the leadership ability will limit the potential of the business, isn't it? The problem of neglect of leadership in most organizations is a systematic problem that self-perpetuates itself. Think about how most people get put in leadership positions. They're not selected for their leadership ability. They're often chosen for their technical ability in a certain area. So the best accountant, the best technician, the best line cook, prep cook becomes a new team leader. Well, it seems to make sense till you realize that leading people takes a totally different skill set. Now you have a new leader, you have the staff and the business. Everyone's unhappy because the lack of productivity of the leadership of the leader is not going to be able to carry the staff. This happens so often. We see this over and over again. How many of you know what I'm talking about? How many of you have ever had a bad boss? Now, the team could be a talented group of people, but like I said, their achievements are not going to rise beyond the leadership lid of the leader. Now, here's a diagram that I want to share about two equally competent people. Both are committed people. The only difference is one of these persons has the ability to lead with influence. And the one that does, his effectiveness goes all the way to number 8. This one goes to number 2. Because of that skill set, his effectiveness is increased by 600%. That's pretty significant, don't you think? Now, it's important that we don't mix up our leadership lid with limited potential. Our leadership lid limits our effectiveness, but we have all the potential we're ever going to need. In fact, way more than we're ever going to use. In fact, Abraham Maslow came to the conclusion that our potential is unlimited. It's unlimited. Now, here's an example that someone shared with me years ago to give me an idea on how to understand infinite potential. They said, imagine, Andy, there's a bedside lamp plugged into the main electricity right in front of me now, right here. Now, you are the lamp, your infinite potential is the electricity, and the light generated by the bulb, well, that's your results. So you are the lamp, your infinite potential is the electricity, and the light generated by the bulb, well, that's the results. Now, we all get different results, don't we? We all light up our surroundings to different degrees. Some of us are very dim, and some of us are very bright. Which are you? But either way, the source, the power is unlimited. Your potential is always ready to flow through you and into your results. The limitation is not in the supply, it's in the bulb. Now, if you didn't understand how this works, you look at the bulb and say the magic, the power is in the bulb. But understanding tells us that the power isn't. It's in the electricity, your infinite potential. Well, our leadership throttles our potential in the same way. Turn in a brighter bulb, more power flows through, you're going to get more light, you're going to turn in some new ideas, raise your leadership lid, and it's going to show up in your day-to-day results, day in and day out. So what I'm saying is wherever your leadership abilities are right now, they are literally the lid on your potential. And that leadership is being reflected day in and day out, as I said. Now, there are 7 ways that we can raise our leadership lid that I wanted to talk about today. The first one is value experience with reflection. You know, everyone says experience is the best teacher, but I believe evaluated experience is the best teacher. How many people you know that make the same mistakes over and over, year in, year out, month in, month out, week in, week out, day in, day out? Could go on, right? Invest in training. Here's an example of training right here. Find yourself a mentor or a coach, someone that you admire, someone you want to be like. Find out what makes them successful. Get in a mastermind focus group. Now, a mastermind is a group of individuals that are like-minded and have a common goal to grow themselves. When people get together with a common goal to grow themselves, there's a lot of energy that comes from that team. They actually create a third mind because they're like-minded, and the third mind becomes, that's why they call it a mastermind. Reflect on who's been a lid lifter in your life. What characteristics made them a lid lifter? Was it a manager? Was it a coach? Was it a family member? Was it a teacher? For me, my greatest lid lifter was my first grade teacher. During that time, I couldn't read. I don't know why. Maybe mommy and daddy weren't doing their job, but I couldn't read. Well, of course she identified that and decided to keep me every day on her own time after school for who knows how long, till eventually not only was I able to catch up, but placed in an advanced reading group. Mrs. Schillings, God bless that woman. Make a stop doing list. Look at how you're spending your spare time. Are you investing in yourself? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to share this one law with you. I would be delighted to be able to share more. Thank you for your time. Have a great evening. Good night.